Ex-Amish woman, 21, details escape with $24, a partial education and no birth certificate. Exclusive, Lovina Hershberger left home on a snowy evening. It was a Monday night in April 2021, to be exact, 10 days after her 18th birthday. She'd plotted her escape thoughtfully, acting both in her own interest and in the interests of her family. She oiled their door hinges the previous night to silence her escape. It was an anxious dash that Hershberger knew would shatter the hearts of her loved ones, hence why she chose that Monday, after their community's biweekly church gathering was let out. Though the April night only got stranger, nothing about that day was typical, Hershberger tells People exclusively. She and her mother took their horse and buggy to make an uncommon trip 7 miles away from their rural Amish community in Iowa. "We went to town to get feed for the horses and stuff at the feed mill," recalls Hershberger, now 21, who belonged to one of the strictest Amish subgroups, the Schwarzentruber order. "That rarely happened, almost never." Before embarking on the errand, she had already cleared out her room. She packed a suitcase with her most sentimental possessions and left the rest of her belongings for her 11 younger siblings. Her only older sibling, her brother Joseph, left the Amish 1 year earlier. She jotted down a note for her mother and father, a few simple words that she can't recall with certainty. Something about sorry. "And I'm okay," says Hershberger. "I did not tell them where I was or anything. They had no way of getting a hold of me." In an attempt to avoid creaking steps, she wore only stockings as she descended her family home's staircase around 11:30 p.m. that evening. Their dogs barked while she put on shoes to guard her feet from the icy ground ahead, but Hershberger was able to pet them into obedience before they could jeopardize her departure. She crept out of the driveway slowly, thinking her parents might wake up and spot movement outside. Whether she left unnoticed or was caught in the act, Hershberger knew they'd be heartbroken when they realized she wanted a new life. She took solace only in the fact that her timing might have delayed the pain of telling their neighbors. "I left Monday right after church because they only have church every 2 weeks," she explains over 3 years later. "So they had almost 2 weeks to recover and get used to it before they had to go to church again." She continues, "When someone leaves the community, it's always tragic. They treat it like a funeral kind of, and it's very sad. I didn't want my parents to have to go to church right after I left. I wanted to make it as easy on them as I could." Hershberger's parents didn't always make things easy for her though. In fact, her decision to abandon the Amish was initially an effort to break out from under her father's control. For 3 years prior to leaving, Hershberger worked as a school teacher for children in the community. "It was the one thing that I loved about being Amish," she says. She always loved school, even as a child, though now she understands her education lacked in key areas, like world history. Growing up, the only subjects she studied were arithmetic, English, and German. But when the 2021 school term ended that April, her dad decided to end Hershberger's beloved career as an Amish educator, and the rules of their old-fashioned lifestyle vested in him the authority to do so. "The parents always decide what you do with your life until you're 21, and my dad told me that they're not going to allow me to be a school teacher again because it doesn't pay enough," Hershberger tells People. Instead, her father wanted her to work full-time on his sawmill, but that wasn't a reality she was willing to accept. For the first time in her life, Hershberger started rethinking everything she'd ever known and every future she'd ever envisioned. Before she was forced out of teaching, the young Amish woman never questioned her lifestyle. She pictured herself steadfastly respecting the rules throughout her life, following tradition, wearing conservative garb and raising a big family like the one in which she grew up. "You have to do it a certain way because it's tradition and church rules. They expect you to just do it the way it's always been done," she explains, looking back on the way she understood her upbringing. "Basically, you are not given the option of branching out with your own imagination." That learned rigidity lingered even after Hershberger was forbidden to return to her classroom. "When I left, I still didn't think leaving was the right thing to do," she admits. But on that snow-strewn April night, 18-year-old Hershberger fought her instincts 4 miles up the road from her home. She arrived at the doorstep of a non-Amish man, a logger who worked for her dad for as long as Hershberger could remember. She and her family were well acquainted with him. She spent time speaking with him, baking for him and learning enough about him to remember that he didn't lock his semi-truck, which was equipped with a built-in sleeper cab. Back then I didn't have any confidence. I was very scared that night. So instead of knocking on the door, because it was like 1:30 a.m., I went and crawled into his sleeper. Hershberger tells People. I slept as good as I could on the semi-sleeper for the rest of the night. When she awoke to the early morning sky, Hershberger made her way from the semi-truck to the shed she knew was attached to the back of the logger's home. When he eventually came down and saw her, she says he knew exactly why she was there and called her parents. Tuesday afternoon, they came to the logger's house, and they stayed over 2 hours trying to convince me to go home with them, to go back to the Amish. She explains. I was kind of in a state of shock. I don't think I said a single word in those 2.5 hours. I nodded my head, shrugged and shook my head and everything, but no verbal words. Suffice it to say Hershberger stuck to her gut. With the help of her brother Joseph, she prepared to move on into the modern world. I was tired of having everybody tell me how to dress, what to wear, how to wear it, the ex-Amish says today. Considering her resistance to those specific rules, it may come as a surprise to see Hershberger in many of the viral videos on her TikTok and Instagram accounts, between which she boasts over 500,000 followers. Now living in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas, Hershberger often dresses up in Amish attire to create content, and viewers frequently question her style in the comments. A lot of times it's just plain because I'm talking about the Amish and my account is about Amish. My Amish clothes are my brand, she reasons to People. My content is about educating people about the Amish, so I want them to see it instead of just hearing it. From a viewer's perspective, the head covering and long-sleeved frock serves as a reminder of just how far Hershberger stepped into the contemporary world. She now posts on TikTok once a day, and she makes up for her limited schooling with the help of a once foreign tool. I use Google every single day for everything, she shares. For the first 18 years of her life, however, she had no access to or knowledge about computers or cell phones at all. And internet access was just one of many avenues she needed to explore. Hershberger had to figure out how to get around with more than just a horse and buggy.